All right. Hello, Animatronians. Welcome to today's weekly Animatron webinar. I, as always, am your personal Animatron Guru, Bryce, and I'll be guiding you through today's topic of interest. And this week, we have decided to go with something more on the business end for you marketing folks or your do-it-yourselfers out there who are really just trying to develop something a bit more unique for your personal websites. So our topic today is about animated logos. So business logos preferably. And for all of you newbies out there, all you folks who have never used Animatron before, but you're here listening to my voice now, I do ask you to go to this link down below the stream. You have to click on a tab that says Show Me More or Show More. There is a link inside of the description area at the very bottom that will bring you directly to our official Animatron tutorial playlist through YouTube. And you can watch those back to back and get yourself familiarized with the basics of the Animatron editor and how to function, and learn something a bit more about the interface, the tools, the terminology involved. So I do highly suggest that you go click on that link and get yourself familiar before you come back to the webinar. Every single one of these webinars is archived after the fact, so don't think you're missing anything by ditching out now, but you can always come back to our archive on our YouTube channel and check out our previous webinars. So just to cover something, last week we went over self-drawing lines, and because it was a bit of a tedious task to create this, it inspired me to make you guys a brand new official tutorial for self-drawing lines. So if you are interested in getting all of that info and you really want to make something your own, as far as creating a self-drawing line or a piece of text that you want to draw onto the canvas like it's animated on, this will be the tutorial for you to check out within the next few days. That'll be live again on our YouTube channel. Our official playlist down at the description area below. And then following that, actually following up this webinar about animated logos, I'll be creating another official tutorial for that as well. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure to keep up with the YouTube channel and follow us. And then anybody who has any questions relating to animated logos or bringing images into the editor and changing them or animating them in any style, I ask that you throw those questions into the live chat, and I'll try to answer those as accurately as I can. If you guys have any off-topic questions or not related to the demonstration that I'll be showing you today, I ask that you please hold off on those questions until the live Q&A session at the very end of this demo. And I will try to answer them as best I can. So otherwise, with all of that nonsense, let's get right to it. I got to share my screen here with you guys. Give me just a second. There we go. All right, so you should be seeing Animatron Editor open up on my screen. And again, when you log in, just simply click on that Create Animation button. If you haven't already, you have a project already, you'll find that in your personal account gallery. So with a fresh, clean scene open, I want to look at two logos here. I already have my folder open, so I'll just drag my folder into view. I have two logos here that I found on Google, really the best information resource for you guys to find assets to play around with in our editor. So we have one image here with a number of humanoid figures in a circle, a symbol of unity. You know, this is a common trend with business logos today, so that's something that we'll look into at the tail end of this demo. But for now, I'm just going to hide that. I'll bring my folder up again, and I will drag in this global business logo here. So this is your generic, multiple colors in a circle, whatever the name of your business is, consuming this line underneath it. And I am using JPEG images. So what I'm trying to get at here is that you can use JPEG images and we can mask them, essentially hide all of the unused space around it and just improvise with what we have. So what I'm going to be showing you is some masking techniques. If you have an image that you have designed and saved out as a JPEG or just a flat bitmap image, you can do the techniques I'm about to show you here. But if you've had a designer create them for you, ideally, the best way that you're going to be able to interact with these objects inside of Animatron is if they are exported as SVG images or animations, because each one of these shapes, these colored shapes, will be able to be broken apart in vector objects, and they will come in on separated layers. So you'll be able to interact with them right away. So if you guys are interested in animating logos, just remember from your designer or from whoever is developing your logos, make sure to get the SVG image. You can get them directly through Illustrator. They export through Illustrator, and they are vector images or vector graphics, and you will be able to work with them right away. So each letter will be on its own layer. Each one of these shapes, if they're separated properly, will be on their own layer. It'll make it easier for the animation process to occur. So what I'm going to show you is a tactic where if you have an old business logo and you don't want to pay a designer to remake it, excuse me, you don't want to go through the hassle of rebuilding a logo or remaking this logo over again. You can use an old image. So you'll see here the definition of the image is not really great, but at distance, if you were to see this on a card, or if you see this on a website, it wouldn't look too inefficient for our needs. So what I'm going to do is start here. I'll lock all the layers I'm not using and get rid of that empty layer. So right now I'm using global business logo. And again, you can see here at the tail end of the title, the name tag of our layer, it is a JPEG image. And I do apologize for the watermark that is over the top of this. I believe that is 99 Designs. So thank you, 99 Designs, for your business. This logo is perfect for our needs. What I'm going to do is start here with the pen tool. And again, like I said before, I'm trying to make a mask around each one of these shapes so that we can animate them into view. It's pretty simple. I'm going to select the pen tool, and I want to make sure my stroke is very thin, so all we're seeing is really the nodes that we place over each object. So what I'm going to do is click around my yellow shape here. I'm just going to left click and get a rough outline encompassing the entire shape. Now there are obviously points that will be difficult to maneuver around or try to get between. But now that you see that I've completed my line, what we can do here, I closed off the line completely by clicking on the very first one I placed. And what I can do is, first, I'll select my fill or make the fill visible. And that means that all of the space in the middle of the line that I just drew will fill in. So you'll see this name, it's grayed out, fill with an underline. You can click on fill and it will fill in the empty gap of the line that I just drew with the pen tool. And then because we don't really need a pen or pencil stroke for our mask, I just hide the stroke. So I'll just click on stroke and you'll see the orange stroke of my shape has disappeared completely. Now, the more difficult part about this, I shouldn't say really difficult. The more tedious part of this whole process, sorry, I'm trying to zoom in here, is going in with the direct selection tool, and that's the second cursor down here on my toolbar, or you can just click A or hit A on your keyboard in order to get your direct selection tool active. And I can click on my shape. And what I'm looking to do here is zoom in as far as I can get without degrading the image too much. And again, like I said, I'm trying to encompass the yellow area behind it without grabbing any of the other portions of the picture behind. So what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll grab each one of the nodes. So I'll select a node and then adjust the Bezier handles so that they encompass the area around it. If I need to, I can click and drag the node around to get a better curvature. So I'll go through this whole process for each one of my shapes by simply drawing the pen line around it and then using the direct selection tool, like I am right now, to refine the curve for the mask. And for those of you who haven't looked at any of our masking tutorials, I do suggest, very highly suggest that you look into them. Again, those are on our official Animatron tutorial playlist on our YouTube channel. So if you guys are not familiar with using masks at all, that's probably the best way that you're going to get any information about exactly what I'm doing here with the masking process. But this is a great way to extract portions of JPEG images. And I say JPEG because more commonly, these you would be able to, you would have to use a mask to extract those sections of the image. Otherwise, you'd have to go into a program like Photoshop and really cut the image apart, and sometimes you don't get the best results from it. If you don't have the time, it's really inefficient. So what I'm doing here is just looking for the yellow underneath it. I don't want any of the yellow to be revealed behind, around the outside of my mask. So what you'll see here is I drew the shape that's roughly the same shape, but a little bit larger than the yellow shape underneath it. Here, I'll hide my curve and you'll see the yellow shape, right? So what I've just done is I've created a mask shape for, and what I'll do is I'll call this mask. I'll rename the shape that I just made. And I'm looking to mask the image underneath it. So simply right-clicking on my layer and clicking on or selecting mask from my context menu, it will hide everything else around the image other than this yellow shape. You can see here, I've extracted a portion of the image with my mask. So what I'm going to do is the same exact thing. Luckily for us, this mask is essentially the same shape as the other three colors as part of this logo. So I can just duplicate my mask. So what I'm going to do is grab both my mask and my image, my initial image. So global business logo is the image that my shape is masking. So I'll select them both. I'll hold down Shift and click on both of them, and you'll see them highlighted in blue. And I'll just hit this little button here. It says duplicate layer. And what that does is it places it in the same spot. It recreates my new mask, and it makes a brand new image underneath it. So you may be wondering why I would create multiple images if I'm using the same mask. Well, the best part about it is that all the images are in the same location. If I just move my mask, so what you'll see here is I will, let's unhide the mask for a new duplicate. I'm going to lock my image, and I will rotate and relocate to the next color that we want to extract. Now, the reason we want to duplicate the image underneath it is because now I can take each one of these masks and animate them individually. So by masking each one of these shapes out, here, let's put the mask back on. I'll click on my little toggle on the left of the mask layer. And there we go. So now we have a blue version. What you'll see here is that a little bit, and I'll show you right with my cursor, a little bit of the green is hanging over into this mask. So what I can do is refine the mask a bit more by selecting it first. So I'll select my mask layer, use my direct selection tool, and then go back through here and just tuck in these nodes so that they are properly masking the area that I want to keep visible. Right, so we can really refine what we're viewing from this image, or what details about this logo that we want to keep included in the masking process. All right, so I'll get a little bit more of that. And look around the edges, and everything else looks pretty good. So I'll zoom back out, and I can get on with my next one. Ooh. So this is a good habit to get into, is to go around the image and just make sure you're refining all of the outside edges. Again, this is the first mask, so I'm going to unlock the first mask. And with my direct selection tool, just tuck in each one of these curves and refine this just a bit more to our liking. Get rid of some of the overhanging parts of the middle of the image. So because this is a JPEG, the definition of the image is not going to be all that great, which is why we would prefer having SVG images in here that we could work with directly to animate them. So this is a fun little, not fun really, tedious technique, but you'll get the same ultimate results as what we had before, or what we would have with an SVG. Let me hide this. Yeah, I figured. So a little bit of this mask is leaching into the yellow color. So again, I'll just unlock the duplicate and nudge my curves in a bit more, so I'm not getting that flood over from the yellow color. So we can just make this a bit more accurate for our liking. I am a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to this, and especially this process, you want to make sure everything is looking clear, because if you have any overhanging color, it becomes obvious when you start animating that everything moving has like a little bit of the edge detail attached to it from the other color, from the previous color. So it becomes obvious that you masked it and chopped it up as a JPEG image. So we want to kind of avoid that. So again, I just finished my second mask that looks clean and crisp. So I'll select my image and my mask and duplicate it. And again, that keeps the image in the same exact location on the canvas. And I'll I'll hide the mask. And now I can move my mask to the green area, or the green section. A good habit to get into here is find a pivot point, a clean pivot point, and rotate the mask from that pivot point, because they generally all follow the same curvature. If this image was professionally if this graphic was professionally designed, it would be a little easier to get these to work perfect. So this is ideal for just duplicating my mask and making a few edits to make sure that the curves mask properly. And I'll put my mask back on to see how I'm doing. Right? I don't want to get any of that flooding color from the edges. And I don't want to get too much of this blue color in the mask. All right, so that looks pretty good. All right, so I have my green, my yellow, and my blue, and I'll do this one more time. Again, select the image and the mask and duplicate it. Unlock my new mask. And let's see, unhide it. Move it to the red section. Again, find a pivot point. That's this little handle here. If you guys don't know how to move the pivot point around, you can just select it, click on it once, and then click and drag. And this is the location that it will rotate from. Or if you happen upon a shape that a good pivot point ends at a corner, this is ideal. I can just click on my registration points here, and I'll have it figure out which one this is because I've rotated it. Here it is. So it's the bottom right, because originally it was upright like this. So my new registration point, my pivot point, is exactly at this corner at the bottom right. So what you can do is just attach the pivot directly to the bottom right corner by clicking on this registration grid. So I'll choose the bottom right corner, and then I can rotate it into place once I'm happy with the location I've moved it to, right? And just grab the handle and rotate it down. And here we go. We have a pretty decent duplicated mask going on here. Right, so again, turn my mask back on. So I want to see some of this red showing through, and that looks good enough. I'm not going to go, super stingy on this. Not let the perfectionist in me get the better of me. And so now we have 4 individual objects. Sorry, 4 individual shapes that are masking out the background image of my. Sorry, the background logo of my image. And what this does also is it cancels out all of the white around it. So if I just wanted to see my canvas, right, I can always change my canvas color, and we can see a better idea of what's being viewed here. Obviously, you see a little bit of the white highlights or the white edges from the masking process. So you want to keep your background color relatively like to the business logo that you've chosen for obvious reasons. But again, if you didn't have an SVG image, you're just working with an old JPEG, this will work just as good. So the last thing in the process is this word business. So what I can do is select one of the images, duplicate it again, and I'll drag my new business logo image out from the third mask copy. And you'll see I have a lot of layers I'm working with now. So in order to make this a bit more pleasant to look at, sorry, let me jump past this here. I'm going to lock out business. Ideally, anything with text you want to have clean, nice, and crisp. So ideally what you would do is see if you can find the original font that this word was written in and try to reuse this font and space out the letters. So I'll give you an example of how you could do this. You can use our text tool. Just click anywhere on the canvas and let's type in business. And this looks like it's all lowercase, all uppercase, business. And what I'm going to do is click on the selection tool. So this will finalize my words here, and it pushed it underneath my mask for some reason. But I'll click and drag my new text layer up above everything else so I can see it. And then I'll go up to the very top where it says font, and I'll try to find something that's at least similar to what I'm seeing in our logo. So let's take a quick scroll through here and see if we can find anything of like nature. Okay. So let's go with that. That's as close as I'm going to find. I don't want to spend all day looking for fonts. But the point is, what you can do in order to separate these and better position them in our logo space is you can right-click on your font. Let me finalize my text. You can right-click on your text itself on the canvas. So right-click, and you get your context menu. And what you can do is convert text to shape. And what this does is it breaks each letter up into its own vector shape. Now, it'll stay together as one piece, but if you look at the layer itself, if you hover over the layer thumbnail, the edit group image shows up, which means that it has basically grouped all of these individual letters together. And when I click on my thumbnail, it has separated each letter onto its own layer. And what this means is now we can space them out and reposition them or even animate them individually if we needed to. Right, so I'll just undo here. And since it's all grouped together, which is ideal, we can move the entire word in one move instead of having to move each individual letter. But what we can do is, since it's grouped, I want to be able to see the image on on the top layer of my scene, as well as be able to position it and keep the words together. So since it's grouped, I can right-click on the group, break apart movie clip, right? Breaking apart the movie clip sends all of the containing layers up to this level. So now you can see I have each one of my individual letter layers. And if I want to keep them, still keep them together, but be able to work with them at this level, with them selected, you'll see that they're all selected for me already. I can just hit combine layers, and this essentially groups them on this timeline. I can just click on this little gray nested layer button, or the little tab here on the left-hand side, little triangle, and I can reveal all the layers that are now in this group layer. So I'll call this text group. And so the point of this is I can select the text group itself and move the entire word into place. And then I can reveal the each individual letter inside and position them. I'm just going to use my arrow keys and nudge them into place. But before I do that, a good, let me undo until this goes back. There we go. A good habit to get into just for trying to line up text is select the object, position it into place. Here, I'll change the color so we can actually see what's going on. So position it more or less centered with the current font, with the current text behind it from our logo. And I'll hold down Shift and scale it so that it meets the left and right edges. So that gives us essentially the size of our font. So obviously this isn't the same font because of how crunched it is. But what we can do is now hold down Shift, and then from this middle toggle, hold down Shift like that, and crunch it down so that it's more or less the same size as each one of these letters. But you see some of the letters don't line up, they're not in place. Obviously it's not the same font, but if you wanted to, again, you could go into each individual letter and hold down Shift for a small nudge, and just click on your arrow keys on the keyboard and nudge them into position. So I can grab the E, I'll select the E layer, hold down Shift and click the left arrow key on my keyboard. And that will slightly nudge it into position for me. And then the S, again, hold down Shift, nudge it in position. So we have more or less a similar text or a similar font to match it. Let me hide this. And what we can do is now I can get rid of the logo, since we have all 5 components. We have each of the 4 shapes, and we have our text. So what I'll do is I'll hide by clicking on my hide layers for the image that I used as a reference. So technically, since I don't need it anymore, I can delete this. If I wanted to keep the same exact font, I didn't know what the font was that the original designer used, or you don't remember what the font was when you created the logo yourself, you can always do the same masking process I did with each of the colors and just put it inside of a rectangle, and then use the rectangle to mask this original text out. So you could do that individually if you wanted. So instead of that, what we did is we went for the direct vector option, and we designed our own font. Again, I'll bring this back to the original color, so I'll just make it a pure black. And I will get rid of this reference image. So I'll select it, unlock it, and then delete it. So it has disappeared. We have 4 of the original shapes, and we have our text group. So obviously this doesn't look too pleasing to the eye because you have vector images. If you used SVG files, they would look this crisp and clean as the font and as your 4 colors here. But since we are trying to extract them from a JPEG image, you kind of run into this issue. So ideally, you might want to mask the text from the original logo. I just wanted to show you that as a technique so you guys can kind of reuse this whole thing. So now that my text is done, I'll lock it. I don't want to disturb it anymore. But what I want to do is now begin the animation process. Since I have all the components of the logo separated in their own mask layers, what I can do is select each one of these sections and group them together. And what I'll do is I'll just select both of them, unlock them because it will not group them if they are locked, and then hit F8. And what F8 does is it pushes them into movie clips, individual movie clips. So I will call this one, oh, I forget which color that is. That's red. So what I'll do is I'll call this red section. And it's in a group, so I can always go into the group and change my mask or change the image itself or anything about it inside of it. And now that I've renamed it and it's grouped, I can lock it. Go on to the next two. Shift select both of them, hit F8 to group them, turn them into movie clips. And then this one was, keep forgetting to check the color before I do it, green. So green section. And again, for each one of the following. So this is blue, F8. Rename it blue section. Lock it down. Unlock my last ones, which are yellow. And I'll hit F8. And rename my movie clip into yellow section. And lock it. So what this does is it solidifies each of the 4 shapes. I can select each layer by itself. I don't have to worry about disturbing the masks anymore for those shapes. And what this allows me to do, since they're grouped, is I can always unlock them and move them around. Right? So this is where the animation part comes in. I have the availability of moving each individual object. Right? Unlock blue, and I can move blue. Unlock green, and I can move green. So what I can do is keep the original logo position of everything and tell it, let's say, our animation is going to occur over 3 seconds time. So what I'll do is I'll bring the scene duration flag, this little flag here with the red line on our timeline, and I'll drag that to 3 seconds. And this will be how fast the logo animates into place. But before I do that, I want to make sure each one of these objects is keyframed. So I'll select everything, my text, and each 4 of these colored sections. And I will essentially keyframe them at the 3-second point. So right-click anywhere on the timeline at 3 seconds and insert keyframes to my selected layers. So what this does is it will always hold memory that those 4 objects at 3 seconds will come back together at this point. Where I want them to start from is off screen. So now I'll, again, working with each individual component at a time, I will start with, let's say, yellow section. And I will move it off canvas. Oops, sorry. To begin this process, to make things a little bit quicker for you guys, make sure that animation mode is switched on by clicking up here on the top of our editor. So animation mode means that on 0 seconds or any time frame that I'm currently on, I can move it and it will keyframe it on the time band. So I'll start at 0 seconds off screen. And let's say I'll move it to each of the 4 corners. So yellow will go down there. Blue section will start up here. Green section will go up here. And you'll see because I have animation mode on, it's automatically keyframing the motion path for it from 0 to 3 seconds. And then the red section, the last one, will come in from the bottom right. So just as a rough understanding what's going on, I'll hit enter on my keyboard and I'll play through it. So that's the speed at which these four shapes come into view, right, for 3 seconds. It's still looking a little bland though. So the next thing I can do is add to each one of them. Since they're kind of curved objects, you would imagine them rotating into place. So what I can do is unlock my yellow section, and I will rotate it again. Select my pivot point. Let's see. I'll rotate it from right about here. Yeah, okay. So I'll rotate the object from here, which means that the tail will whip around a little bit. Actually, let's relocate that about there from the center. So what I can do is, because animation mode is on, I can rotate it and it will automatically keyframe that rotation for me at 0 seconds. So I will add, let's say, 360-degree full turn. Right, so I can just click and hold, and you'll see the 360 degrees as I'm holding left click on my rotation handle, and I'll let go. And now you see rotation at 0 seconds is at 360 degrees. And as I scrub through, this our timeline, we can see that the object rotates from that object at the center pivot point that we selected. So ideally, we want to do this for each of the other 4. So I'll quickly go back through my blue section, select the pivot, make sure I'm on 0 seconds, animation mode is on, hold down left click and drag it to the center of my blue shape. And then I will click and rotate this to positive 360 degrees. And since it's animated, since animation mode is on, it will automatically keyframe that rotation and the pivot point for me. So again, for green, choose the center point, rotate positive 360 degrees. Come on, you can do it. There you go. Or you can just type it in to our rotation field right here. So that's what I'll do for my red one. I'll select my, gotta unlock it. Unlock my layer, select the red one, reposition the pivot point. That looks about right. There we go. And instead of manually doing it with my rotation handle on the canvas, I can just go up here into the inspector panel, and under rotate, I'll set it to 360 degrees. I'll just type in 360, hit enter, and there we go. So now each of these 4 objects is individually animated, rotating into place. Right? So still nothing too flashy. The last bit of information is obviously the text needs to do something flashy, and the rate of speed of each of these 4 shapes should be changed, just for better appearance. So what I can do is unlock each one of my colored shapes, right-click between the first and last keyframe, set easing. Easing will give us a bit better return on the animation that occurs, and it gives it a nice soft exit and entrance. So you'll see by clicking on quad, this is a nice soft easing curve. It starts nice and slow and then softens into the final position, which is pretty ideal for what we have. Cubic will happen a little bit quicker, but it's nice and soft from the beginning and end. And then the center point of the animation is a little bit faster. Expo is pretty nice too because it has that little, speedy swish in there. And since these are curved shapes, this is probably the ideal use for this. But we also have circle and back and bounce. So I'm just going to use Expo with in and out checked on. This means that entering my scene, the in point will be smooth. If I unchecked it, it will be extremely fast and then slow into place. Right, so that looks pretty cool too. I'll use this instead. You get to this point where you start looking at things for so long and just playing around with these options, the in point or the out point. All right, so get used to selecting each one of these checkboxes and seeing which one works best for you. So for this one, I'm just going to do an out and use Expo because it's a nice soft finishing touch at the end. It's almost like it's floating into place. And then I'll click back, and then that easing is set for red section. And I can do the same thing for green, blue, and yellow. Right click between the keyframes, set easing, uncheck in, and use Expo. And that will apply the same easing to both of those shapes. Right, and again, for blue section, right click between the keyframes, set easing. I don't want the in point, but I do want the out point, and I want to use Expo. And I'll go back, again for yellow, right click between the keyframes, set easing, uncheck in, and select my Expo easing for that color. So now I have 4 colors. I'll hit enter. And that looks a lot better. It may be a bit slow towards the end. So we could go into each one. Again, right click, set easing, and see if any one of these other ones gives a bit better appeal to how this comes into view. Let's try circle. And that's a bit slow. That's interesting. Okay, let's try Expo. We'll stay with Expo. So I'll go back. Again, I'm getting into perfectionist mode here. So apologize for that. So the last thing is our text. We want a cool little text appearance to happen. So what's great is once everything is grouped, or anything that is grouped or put into one layer, ideally one layer, is that you can create a mask for it. So you can do masks within masks if you so desired. So what I'm going to do is create this shape. And I'm going to slightly skew my shape so that when it comes into view, I'm just going to try to line this up with my shape here. And I will resize it so it fits the whole piece of text. And this will become my mask. So essentially, oops, that went into my text group. So I'll open my text group, grab the shape, and extract it from the group by holding left click and dragging it out of the group. So this way, what I can do is animate the shape from, let's say, 1.5 seconds to 3 seconds. So go to 1.5. I'll keyframe it by right-clicking at the 3-second mark and insert the keyframe there. And that's where I'll have it end, is right to reveal the text behind it. So because this is a mask, again, right-click and mask with my shape. And I'll call this text mask so you guys know what I'm doing. This is masking the text group underneath it. So from 1.5 seconds, what I'm going to do is simply nudge it using my arrow keys. And I will nudge it from off screen. Oops, that's way too far. Just got to be careful while nudging, not to hold down the arrow keys, because sometimes the process is trying to catch up with the amount of information you're putting in. So it will pause for a slight second, and then we'll shoot past it. So try not to hold down the arrow key if you can help it. But just use the arrow keys by themselves to nudge a bit further. If you need a bit more of a small, refined nudge, you can hold down Shift and use the arrow keys. So now what I have is from 1.5 seconds to 3 seconds. Oops, why is that viewed? Oh, because it's not masked at all. My bad. So what I want to do is just drag it out so it is permanently masked. The mask, what I currently had was no mask up to 1.5 seconds. So the text group underneath it was still visible. So what you can do is just hover over the beginning keyframe at 1.5 seconds where I had it and hold this little blue handle, and this will create a new keyframe for you that you can drag back to 0 seconds. So now it's masking it from 0 seconds where it's not in view, right? Our mask is not over the text. And then once it hits 1.5 seconds, it zooms into place. Now, again, for a little touch of flair, we want to add some easing to our text appearing into place. So I'll right click between the two animated keyframes, set easing. And let's see if we can... Here, maybe quad. It's a little softer. Maybe cubic. Yeah, I kind of like that. We're going to go with cubic with in and out selected, and I'll hit back and replay and see what I have. So I'll lock my layer, hit enter, and there you go. And one last thing you could do, honestly, you can even mask the way that these shapes appear or how fast they appear over time. What you could do, and I'll just give you this as a quick little finisher. I wasn't able to get to this other business logo, but I will definitely make sure to incorporate it into the official tutorial later on next week. So I'll unlock one of these. Let's use the red one. I'll go into the group by clicking on it here. And because this is masked inside of it already, I can go ahead and one more time inside of this group, select both of them, hit F8, and that will force them into another movie clip. Now, don't worry about creating too many movie clips as long as they're being used properly. What I did this for is now we can mask the individual movie clip without disturbing the mask of the shape itself. So what I'll call this is animated. No, just call this shape clip. Shape clip or movie clip. And then again, I can create. Let's see, how should we do this? What I'll do is I'll reuse the mask that we used to reveal the shape. How about this one? I'll go into my new movie clip, my shape clip. I'll select the mask because it's already a cool shape that copies that shape currently. I'll right click, I'll copy it. I'll go back into my red section clip, and I'll right click in my layer area and paste in place. And I'll unhide the mask. So because it is masked, right, we don't worry about it being masked because it's actually going to be masking my shape clip. But what I want to do is make this kind of more or less a creative way for my shape to be revealed on its own level. So I'll lock the shape clip because I don't want to disturb it. I'll bring it to a point where I think it'll be a good position to start. Right, this happens, let's say it happens within 1 second. I'll right click at 1 second and insert keyframe. And that's the position it will finish in. And where it starts from is 0 seconds. And I'll rotate this. And heck, let's make it a little bit larger. So we make sure that all of it is in view. And then what I want to have happen is it pop into place. But you see it goes past, sorry, Not allowing you guys to see the full view here. So what this does is I moved it above from the pointy end of the curve, and it's going to be revealing the curved shape throughout. But what I can do to make this work a bit better for us is select the curve with my direct selection tool, select the nodes for the start and finish of it, and I can actually move this shape around and refine the motion path from point A to point B. And this should give us a bit more of a favorable animated mask into place. And even this mask should be eased. So now that I have 2 keyframes and my motion path looks good, I'll right click between my new mask, set easing, and I will, let's say maybe this should happen a little bit quicker or slower. Yeah, let's go with sine. So this happens a little bit slower since the animation of the shape itself. It happens a bit quicker on the top end. So I'll add that, make sure that it looks proper, and I'll activate the mask by clicking on the toggle and hit enter to see what happens. All right, so that's pretty cool. So now we have our curved shape, right, with a mask. You'll see the red one. Let's look at the red one at the bottom right. Hit enter, and it looks like it's revealed if it's popping into view. Right, so we can recycle that same mask by going back into red section, copying the mask, right click on the mask, copy, go back to scene 1 using our breadcrumbs at the top. I'll lock my red section, I don't need it anymore. Green section I'll open by unlocking it and then clicking on its thumbnail layer. We want to regroup these into a new movie clip. So select both of them and hit F8. And I'll just call this shape clip again. It's easier to remember. And then right click and paste in place. And it will automatically keep the mask at that point in time. We got to take a look at this because apparently it's offset. Oh, because the rotation of my shape was in a different spot. So what we can do to resolve this is go back to design mode because we don't want to inadvertently change any of these properties. But what I can do is move it to the edge, rotate it so that it looks like it's moving into the correct position. Oh. All right, so this is going to be a bit difficult for us to replicate. Let's try this. Right, the rotation itself needs to be redone. So let's not worry about this right now. Again, that's tedious, but you get the point. You can copy these masks, put them into new movie clips, and essentially duplicate the mask and have it affect all of these shapes. Hit enter. Business. Perfect. So that's the essentially the process of taking a JPEG image, masking out each one of the individual components, and then animating them into place. Again, for you guys who want a bit better appearance, something that's scalable, meaning if you need to have it on a huge billboard, if you need to have this animation occur on a website that's viewed on larger screens or smaller screens, even on the cell phones or tablets, you would ideally want your designer or create your own SVG or tell your designer that you want the format in SVG so that you can animate those shapes directly and they don't lose any definition when they're scaled up onto a bigger screen when people are viewing them. All right, so there's my business logo. So we went over easing, masking of each of these shapes, doing some clever little tricks to make the mask stick or appear better. And I was essentially going to do the same thing with this logo here as well, because it is a bit better of a presentation to have these kind of come into place without the use of text. But anyway, it's the same exact concept between this logo and the other one. So that wraps it up. If you guys have any questions, please throw those into our live chat right now, and I'll try to answer those as best as I can. For all of you guys out there who are interested in learning a bit more, again, please go down to the description area below this stream and click on Show More, and there should be a little link at the bottom, hyperlink that will bring you to our playlist of official Animatron tutorials on our YouTube channel. And this is, again, the best way to see all of the tutorial information and give you guys some more help. If you guys need more specified help, you can always go to our website, right, our Animatron website, and click on Help. And in here is our knowledge base. There are a number of articles that are being populated weekly. So if you have any specific questions that don't exist in our knowledge base, there's a large list of them here. You can always go to our forum, sign up in our forum, and everybody likes to ask questions in here and kind of speak their mind. And this is our Animatron community. This is other people like you who are currently using Animatron and trying to figure out what the best way is to develop the animation or develop the video that you're trying to ultimately create. So be active in our community and be a part of helping us to help you by asking any question that you have on your mind. No question is too weak, no question too difficult for us to try to wrap our heads around. And this is the best way for us to get feedback. So for those of you who have way more intricate issues that you're trying to figure out, and you can't find any help between our forum and our knowledge base or our tutorials even, what you can do is send a topic suggestion for me into feedback@animatron.com. And simply send in an email to feedback@animatron.com with a subject header that says topic of the week suggestion, and make sure you give me any suggestion you have. No suggestion is too tough. I'll try to figure this out for you. Anything having to do with anything, please send those topic suggestions in, because then I'll be able to give you a live webinar next Wednesday or any Wednesday after that for your guys' specific topics that you send in to us. So I do please ask that you throw those into feedback@animatron.com, and hopefully by next week, by next Wednesday at 11 a.m., you'll be able to come back and I will be covering whatever topic tends to be the most popular among those suggestions that you send in to me. So before I head out, I'd like to thank you guys again for sticking around with me and looking through another one of these webinar demos with me. And I want to just remind everybody to like and share all of our content through Twitter, Facebook, anything that you are active in our social community. Go ahead and like and share and follow us, and make sure you keep on top of everything. And then finally, before you guys head out, you can always check out our blog. Go to our main page and click on blog, and we're updating new things that are occurring within Animatron and around our community every day. So if you need any input or you need any information on what's going on in the Animatron community, you can always check out the blog, and we try to update this for you guys. Again, we had our Halloween contest, animated postcard contest, and you guys sent in some pretty cool things. So we'll be looking over those, and hopefully we'll see really who has the top animation skills, someone who can really impress us. And then just scrub through these blogs. And again, you can find a number of guest bloggers. We have a number of guest bloggers that like to post for us, and come see the cool things that they've made and developed. So aside from that, that essentially wraps up our webinar demo for today. So again, thank you for sticking around. Join us next week 11 a.m. Wednesday, every Wednesday, for our weekly Animatron webinars. And you can come back and say hi to me, your personal Animatron guru, Bryce. And I will see you then. Have a good day. Bye-bye.